Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm J. Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams. Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leanne Morgan.
This is Graham Parker. This is GP. And this is why you should never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. I am Lucas Pinkett. I'll be playing the part of the Reverend today, as always, as I am an actual pastor. And over to my left is a man whose affinity for asking questions in the form of statements is on display in full force this week. It's the big man,
And I'll be here.
Dan Gibson.
Yep.
The Reprobates. What's up, man?
Again, man, sometimes you just get too excited. And I just want to hear him. You know, it's definitely the Chris Farley bit.
Oh, yeah, it certainly is.
Hey, you remember that when you did this movie? Yeah, that was awesome. For sure.
I think the difference between
This episode is going to be one of those.
What you do and the Chris Farley bit is that Chris Farley asked them about things that they did. You always end up asking somebody about something that they have no relation to.
He knew it. And he did.
Right.
This is a little spoiler. He knew what I'm trying to ask a question about my dad's favorite cartoon.
He literally said,
us.
I don't really know that that's a question. Like everybody else.
I know.
So you get excited about something that they have nothing to do with that happened around the same time that they were working.
And yet, we are still talking about it.
Yeah.
So was it terrible programming?
You decide.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you decide. We talked to Len Uhley today, who's one of the most fascinating
Leonard Uhley
and prolific animation writers of really the last 35 years. He's worked on DuckTales, TailSpin, Darkwing Duck, the Rescue Rangers. So that was most of our after school.
Yep.
Watching that solid 2 hours. He's also worked on all three iterations of Ben-10.
I was in school. Cannot wait to get home to watch TailSpin.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And so he's also worked on all the iterations of Ben-10. He's worked on VeggieTales. He worked on Marvel's Avengers. And you might know him from several of the episodes he did, namely the two with Nightcrawler from X-Men, the animated series. That's exactly right. And we hope that all of y'all enjoy that theme song. So as we talked about this stuff, all the theme songs popped into my head. Big thank you to Ricky Pope from the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, who introduced us to Len.
We call him Thick Rick.
I do not call him that. I don't call him that at all. If you're still here, I don't know why.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, make sure that you like, subscribe, ding the little bell, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Let us know the stuff that you like, what we could do to be making the show better. And as always, without any further ado,
Big animals. I know.
All right, Expo. Today on our sweet, clean airwaves, we have another person. If you've watched our show before, you listen to it, you know what we say is we're two best buds interviewing people we have no business talking to. Today is just a magnifying glass on that in such amazing perspective and clarity, because we have on our airwaves today the phenomenally talented Len Uhley. Len is literally the author of our childhood, writing on such incredible shows as the original X-Men cartoon, as well as X-Men Wolverine and the X-Men, all of the Ben-10 series, TailSpin, Darkwing Duck, Ozzy and Drix, Static Shock. The guy has done everything that has to do with superheroes, including written for the Marvel series, which includes not only my favorite Avenger, but also the greatest superhero of all time, Thor, seconded to his work on the Batman. It's the phenomenally talented, the dashingly handsome Len Uhley. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Dashing is no longer part of the routine, but thank you for all of that other bit. Standing up and walking is good, but there's not a lot of running at this juncture. But I'm fine, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I do appreciate it, and I have written a lot of stuff, and we can talk about those and go into the origin story and all that other sort of nonsense.
First off, we need to start with a sincere thank you.
Absolutely.
For all of the stories that I grew up pretending to be the characters in.
Well, you're very kind to say that I was the author of the childhood. I was not. I was one of the.
Right.
I was fortunate to, sort of get into the animation business at the right time. And for people about in your age bracket, my colleagues and I wrote a lot of things that people still remember fondly, and for that I'm very, very grateful. But I worked for a lot of really wonderful people, first at Disney and then on X-Men the Animated Series, my friend Eric Lewald, and then lots of other people, and we can talk about all of them because I always like to give credit to the people who were silly enough to employ me. And I'm very, very grateful to them, and got really lucky. And then, of course, before the 30-some years in animation, I also had 10 years as a precocious and then struggling sitcom writer, because I had my first professional sale when I was a junior at UCLA in the film school. So I have been at this longer than I care to admit, but I just admitted it. So, we can talk about any or all of those things, or none of them, frankly.
I think first we start with, we kind of talked a little bit before, just getting some of our facts straight, that you were nominated 5 times for an Emmy.
Yeah.
Daytime Emmys,
with colleagues,
primetime Emmys.
Shared credit.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I would love to hear about any of those.
Well, let's see. I was very lucky that when I was at Disney TV Animation, I was nominated for a couple of Emmy Awards there. And when I was at Warner Brothers Animation, I was nominated for 3 awards there. Never won. And for those who do look on IMDb, we have to correct a mistake that they have made for me and several other people.
We're putting IMDb on notice right now.
Well, I have tried to correct the record, but it's apparently the wheels turn slowly.
Yes.
The short version is this: we were nominated. I and several other people wrote the multi-parter that was the sort of the opening salvo of TailSpin,
right? Which
was a multi-part that got turned into a TV movie, which we also did on DuckTales before that. Anyway. So we did this Plunder and Lightning, which was a lovely multi-parter.
It was
great.
It
was nominated for an Emmy. And we were all sitting there at the Emmy Awards banquet. I think it was a primetime, but I could be wrong. It was Creative Arts, which is separate from the broadcast. Anyway, and they announced the episode was the TV movie was nominated. We were the only ones in the category. And then they said, no award will be given in this category this year. And literally people in the audience who had nothing to do with this said, come on, give it to them. So that was, I think, a case maybe of there was some politicking behind the scenes of which I was not a part. Wow. And there might have been some pressure to include it. And then, the Television Academy doesn't like to get told what to do. And so that's how that ended up that way. But be that as it may, as they say, it is an honor to be nominated. And I have had that opportunity a few times, and that's great. The thing you see behind me is not an Emmy Award. That's a Writers Guild Award, kind of a life achievement-y thing. Mm-hmm. So, and from this angle, it looks a little like an enormous can opener, but it was also a nice thing to have happen. I've been very lucky throughout my entire career that I've been able to work on a number of really wonderful shows. So to get any kind of a recognition and to have people like you want to talk about that that's a bonus. So,
man, I just feel like a little kid all over again.
Right.
I don't know what to talk about first.
There's so many things to pick from.
Yeah, you wrote on X-Men, which was one of my favorite cartoons growing up. Yeah, we can do all of it. TailSpin when I was much littler. I pretended to be Kit Cloud Surfer. I can't remember his name. Kit Cloudington.
Kicker.
Cloud, yep.
Flying, surfing in the clouds behind Baloo, flying the plane. It was the best thing ever. I don't know what to talk about first. I really don't. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, the first thing I want to start with is a thank you, right? Because
I already started with that.
Mine is for something completely separate.
Oh,
so it is for season 4, episode 1 of the X-Men, and here's why. I'm the oldest of 4, and we were always being told what we could and could not watch, not based off of necessarily the content of the shows, but on how well we would adapt to those characters in our living room and act out the things that we saw, right? So Ninja Turtles was a supervised watch, or else my brothers and I would like grab pillows and broomsticks, and we were trying to, like act out our favorite Ninja Turtles. Well, so when we first started watching X-Men, it was in syndication at this point. All of us were a little older. It was on Saturday mornings, and we were watching it, and my mom was not very sure about X-Men because there's, all of this stuff with, it's the new evolution and all of this stuff that was going along with it. Well, the very first episode that my mom sits down and watches with us is the Nightcrawler episode, where Nightcrawler comes in and he's talking about his faith.
Right away.
And she was like, you know what? X-Men, and not so bad.
Those X-Men boys are nice boys.
Glad I could help.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things, though, in your writing, kind of across the board, is that you have a really incredible way of presenting what we would consider very adult situations to kids in a way that is not only understandable for them, but it's very easily accessible. Like, it's information that not only would they get it, but they could explain it to you well afterwards. What is that like, being a writer, writing for kids, and what's your process in making it something that is so available to them on an intellectual level?
Well, let's see. The glib answer is I can do this because I'm incredibly immature. But the truth is, the dirty little secret of any kind of writing, but even animation for children, we're writing to entertain ourselves, because if we're bored putting it on the page or on the screen, then nobody else is going to want to watch it either.
And kids are seconds away from being bored
all
into
the time.
Perpetuity.
Well, and so you have to have, and it's, of course, the attention span has diminished exponentially for everyone, adults and children, since I started. But you still want to tell an engaging story. And even though you're, putting the words into the mouth of a talking duck or a person in long underwear, you're always you write about the human condition, because what else do we know?
Right.
So you write about things. Yes, we do a lot of shows, especially, early on in the Disney times, we were writing fun romps, everybody after the treasure. And that's great. It's a terrific way to tell stories and keep children and the adults who have to sit with them engaged. But I've been able to work for a number of showrunners. I mean, guys, I'm just a working slob. I got a chance to be the utility infielder for a lot of really wonderful showrunners. When you mention X-Men, that would be Eric Lewald, who was put in charge of that show, before I was involved, certainly. I was still at Disney, and I had gotten to know Eric and Julia, his wife, when I was on staff at Disney. And he then left, and then he started running X-Men. And so when I left Disney, Eric was already up and running on that show, and I got a chance to write the 3 episodes that I wrote for X-Men, the animated series. I've been able to work for people like Alan Burnett, who was the sort of the undersung hero of the Warner Brothers animation group. He, from Batman, the animated series forward, Alan ran all of those shows, Batman and Superman and Crypto, and all the, the wonderful series that were there, and most of the animated features up to a point. Alan's now retired. I've been able to work for terrific people like, there's a guy I work for lately named Rob Hoagie, who's doing absolutely brilliant stuff. He did the CGI reboot of Thunderbirds Are Go, which was a British series, but then got redone with CGI characters and practical backgrounds. The special effects were done by Peter Jackson's company in New Zealand. So it's absolutely beautiful, feature quality. And that was on Amazon here. Not all of the episodes, unfortunately. But, we have time, and he's got a show on right now for your fans who have younger kids. I highly recommend a show called Stillwater. It's on Apple Plus, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Again, Rob he produces these wonderful shows, and it's about mindfulness. And we're all being bombarded all the time, and this show allows kids to dial it down and think and pause, and it's a completely different pace than the kind of animation I'm used to doing. So to see something like that and to see it getting a wide audience is just wonderful. Anyway, I digress. I've been able to work for all of these great people who, and the one I have to mention absolutely is the late Dwayne McDuffie. Mm-hmm. Dwayne was the creator of Static. He and his friends created Milestone Comics, and Static Shock is based on one of their characters. And I subsequently worked for Dwayne on a couple of iterations of the Ben-10 series. And all of these people have been so wonderful because they all encourage you to write something that's more than the silly romp, that's about important issues. But none of us are ever trying to do a very special episode. We just are dealing with things which are interesting to us and are great drama or can lend themselves to comedy. It's always been great to work for people who are willing to sort of push the envelope and tell stories which are emotional, because at the end of the day, you want to engage the people. You want to make people laugh and cry and feel something. And so I've had a chance to do that for a number of different showrunners, and it's what a perk.
Yeah,
well, it's been really great.
I'm really glad you brought that up. Like Static Shock. I mean, most of the Nightcrawler episode we referenced earlier that has a really the bulk of the episode, at least there's kind of a Frankenstein's monster kind of feel that they're coming after Nightcrawler, but really like the heart of the episode is
it's a Frankenstein.
Yeah. Blucher. But it's Nightcrawler and Wolverine discussing theology and where being felt left behind by God, like where Wolverine comes from, and that kind of reminds me of Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That he took on some big thoughts for little children that struggle with what to do when you're angry, and it's okay to feel angry, and these are ways to process it, and it's pretty cool to see that, and I think that's why it relates partially to adults too, because we all we like to laugh, but we all like to maybe subtly think through some things.
Right. And I'll tell you how that X-Men, I wrote 3. I did one called Cold Comfort, which was the introduction of Iceman, Bobby Drake, mm-hmm. and the X Factor did cameo in that. And second one I wrote for them is the Nightcrawler episode. And the third episode is Bloodlines, and that's Nightcrawler's discovering that his mom was Mystique, one of their major villains. Yeah. So, I got a chance to touch on some very big hot button issues in that X-Men universe. But the Nightcrawler episode was interesting because Eric Lewald and I, the showrunner, and I, Eric was very good at casting people for, who could write what best. And he knew that I was at that point going through a period of discernment for myself in terms of faith. And so he said, let's have Len do that story. And so I was assigned the task of doing Nightcrawler, who had existed, of course, in the comic books prior to my work on it. So it's not like I did anything original. I just was sort of able to do our version of his story. And we started out very cautiously because, our first version had, Nazi gold and snowmobiles and machine gun fire.
What's wrong with that? That sounds like
all that's good, but
like Quentin Tarantino.
It's Indiana Nightcrawler.
There you go. Yeah, but we had Avery Coburn, who is the standards and practices supervisor.
Yeah,
Eric had established a rapport with her, so she, by the time I came and became involved with the top of season 4, she trusted him and the people he worked with to do stuff that was not going to, throw a monkey wrench into the work. So I got that advantage. And there was a creative executive named Sidney Iwanter. Sidney's quite a character. And eventually, also I'm one of the unsung heroes of the X-Men world. And Sidney, who, grew up, with, he knows Old and New Testament better than probably 97% of the people in the entertainment industry. Sidney was the guy who said to us, "What are you doing? I don't want, what is this? Give me a loving, giving God. Okay.
Wow.
Fine. And so we pared it down to tell the story in the simplest way possible, to establish a dialogue between a person who has lost his faith and a person who by every right should also have lost his faith. I mean, Kurt Wagner looks like a demon. So, you would say, well, if anybody should feel badly about things, it's him. But he's the guy who cares so much and it believes so clearly in God's love and mercy that it became like, oh, okay, what a great, butting of heads episode. And then, yes, things exploded and guns went off and fire happened and stuff like that. But the episode resonates with people, even though, it's not animated. Again, the budget on these X-Men episodes was like 1/3 or 1/5 what they had over on Batman the Animated Series. Right. So it may not be the greatest animation in the world, but the artists who were doing it, Larry Houston in particular, producer director on the show, they did wonderful work with the budget that they had, and then and cared so deeply about these characters and telling every story to the best of the production's capabilities. It turned out to be a very good episode that people still today, every couple of weeks, something will ping on Twitter and people will talk about it for a few days. And when we used to go to comic conventions and did panels, Eric and Julia would invite me and Larry as well. And we'd all have these panels where people would come and they'd say what shows they liked. And people would come up to me afterwards and say, that show allowed me to talk with my parents about issues of faith, which we never could do. And it was, okay, well, glad I could be of assistance. Again, with what we do for a living, we're doing stuff because we're lucky to have the jobs. Once in a while, though, it's more than just a paycheck, and you realize how much people care about the work you've done 20, 30 years later, and it's touching and it's humbling, because here we are doing stuff that like resonates even today. And, I got lucky, I think is the short form.
But in the best way possible.
I sure hope that in 20 or 30 years, we have someone that likes our work.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. We've got a lot of time to build up to it. You say you got lucky, but you've been lucky now for several decades. So you've been able to keep the gig, which means it's more than just luck. And you're someone that's sought after.
Some of that Harry Potter luck juice.
Yeah, that.
What's that called?
Yeah. I left, the wand is in the shop.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. So I'm curious. You did this stuff with X-Men, with Disney.
If you're moving on.
Yeah. Okay. So let's stick with X-Men. Question. Let's stick with X-Men. I want to know how difficult it is to write for, and maybe this will branch out to all of Marvel, to write in the voice of these superheroes.
Oh yeah, good question.
Because you did it for Batman, you did it for Nightcrawler. But in that episode, authentic. Yeah, but in that episode, you're also writing for Wolverine and for Rogue and for Gambit, right? And then in these others, right, when you're writing an Avengers episode, you're writing in the voice of Tony Stark, and also in Iron Man as Bruce Banner, and as the Hulk, as the greatness of Thor. How do you put yourself in a mode where you can write for all these different archetypes of characters, and what's that like?
Well, I suppose if it were easy, more people would be doing it. But again, sorry, glib answer. The fact is
that's the truth.
If you're a writer for any kind of television or features, you're by nature, you have to be kind of a good mimic, a bit of a chameleon. So, you listen, you have to have a sort of facility with words, which I only have sometimes, but you get into the habit of sort of studying what others have done. Again, I didn't make up these characters. I was the first person to write Nightcrawler. Others have done so since in animation. And it was subsequently, he was an important part of the second X-Men movie and things like that. But all of this in turn came from the comic books where sort of the foundation was laid. So, and we had research material even in the pre-internet days when we were working on that show and other shows. And you see what other people have done, and you begin to sort of, if you're lucky, you begin to have some sort of sense of who these characters are. And of course, again, let's not diminish the fact that when you have a showrunner, X-Men, that was Eric Lewald. Static Shock, my showrunner on that was Alan Burnett. Ben-10, my showrunner on that was Dwayne McDuffie, et cetera, et cetera. You have these people who, if the individual writer, the freelancer or a staff writer sort of goes off track, the showrunner is responsible for sort of making things all match. So if you decide to do an all musical episode of RoboCop, the story editor will say, we're not doing that, then bring it back. You laugh, but I briefly was a story editor on RoboCop Alpha Commando, and there were one or two scripts that didn't come in as musicals, but it was like, no, let's not be so quippy here. It's a guy who's mostly cyborg and he shoots things.
Yeah,
of course, you couldn't really shoot people in the cartoon version, but don't get me started. So anyway, the fact is you're there to service the show and to sort of fall into line and within certain parameters do your version of that. But we're all of us working towards a greater goal, which is to get another season.
Right.
So you don't want to go too far afield.
Yeah.
Just for argument's sake or curiosity, what style of music would be in the RoboCop musical?
Oh, you're touching on a very sensitive subject for me, because what I started out being, here's a little inside stuff. I started out writing musicals in high school and college.
Is that where the keyboard's in the background?
This was so the road not taken, because I actually wanted to be able to earn a living. And being a guy who writes musicals, well, that isn't usually the case. That talk about a small subset of the entertainment industry. Those people who make a living at that, well, God bless them. But it's not something one does quite easily. I have been able to get a couple of songs into a few cartoons over time.
Yeah.
The first one was in a Gummy Bears. I wrote the theme song for The White Knight, which was one of the episodes I did fairly early on the Gummy Bears, once I was on staff there. And that was sung by the great Rob Paulson in one of his first work. And Rob is, the voice of Pinky and the Brain.
He's so many voices.
Several iterations of the Turtles and so forth. Hilarious guy. One of the dearest, most wonderful people. But as soon as he and Maurice Marsh and LaMarche and all those people, as soon as they walk into a recording booth, you're just laughing. They're just so much fun to be around. And so I digress here, but for those of us who get a chance to, see a show that we've done recorded, that's like opening night. It is so much fun because they're hilarious and they make whatever you've written that much better.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So I started out writing musicals in high school. My project one, which was the Super 8 film, because we did film back when I was in college, was a 1-song 9-minute musical. That's what I did.
One song?
Project One at UCLA. And the thing I learned in film school was don't spend your own money on your movies. So I came away from that with that bitter education. And I've thrown songs in. I wrote a song a couple of times in Ozzy and Drix, which was a show that was, I think we did 2 seasons of that over at Warner Brothers. And I got to write a song. The kid started, he was goaded, whose body the leads lived in. He was goaded into trying tobacco. And so I got a chance to do a character called Nicotine, and that was voiced by Tim Curry. So I got to co-write a song. I just did the lyrics that Tim Curry sang.
Yeah,
and I want to tell you,
Tim
that
Curry.
was check that box of wonderful weirdness.
No kidding.
Listen, it's been such a ride. I talk about going into the booth. When I started out, at Disney, again, just that was the first time I had written animation. And suddenly I was listening to the voices of my childhood, like June Foray, who was the voice of Rocket J. Squirrel, and Paul Winchell, and Chuck McCann and Hamilton Camp. And I'm looking at my list here because there's so many. Howard Morris, who was on Sid Caesar's Show of Shows. Oh my God, all of these incredible people. And they're saying stuff I wrote. So how wild and weird was that? So, when you talk about your childhood, that was like, I got to visit my childhood, and then the people who were working on those early shows were like giants of the voiceover industry today, like Rob Paulson and Jim Cummings and Corey Burton, Katie Lee. All these people were doing my words right out of the gate. And it's like, oh, well, okay, what else can I do? Thank you very much. Anyway, so it was, I came in at the right time because, I came in at, my first assignment was a freelance on Gummy Bears. My second assignment was Where No Duck Has Gone Before, which was an early DuckTales episode. So, and then I got on staff at Disney TV Animation. So right when they were ramping up the Disney Afternoon, those giant 65 episode orders for syndication, none of which would happen today. I mean, I was on a roll with all these wonderful, talented people.
Yeah, that's got to be so cool. I mean, you had me at, when you wrote, you wrote a script and all of your heroes came in. Like for me, it would be Kevin Conroy and Rob Paulson. And Jim Cummins,
as soon as you said Rob Paulson and Tim Curry, I'm like, I want to go.
Melted. Yeah, I melted.
That's incredible.
Oh, okay, all right. Here's a sidebar. I don't know if I've told this story before.
You may approach.
One of the episodes I wrote for Static Shock was The Big Leagues. And so in The Big Leagues, the Joker comes to Dakota. So suddenly Static is working with Batman and Robin to fight the Joker, who's picking up some of the Bang Babies to be his new gang. So I got to listen to the guys who were Batman and Robin, and like Kevin Conroy, and the villain was Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill. Oh man, the best.
Wow.
Joker.
So, and then here's the funny story. If I ever meet him again, I've met him a couple of times, he wouldn't remember. I'm not in the inner circle of people who've worked with this guy hundreds of times.
Us either.
But so we're in a recording. We did the first run of the episode, and we. They say, okay, we're going to figure out our pickups. And so we step outside and I walk with him for a second, and it's like around Halloween, and we're in the lobby of the building, and some people have come in costume, and you can imagine what the costumes are. There's a Darth Vader and there's a Stormtrooper. And I say, does this happen to you a lot? And he turns to me and says, oh, good. You see them too. So I love that about him, that he has such a great sense of humor about himself.
Yeah.
And he's humble, and he's done a few things, it's just, wow.
Yeah. He's Luke Skywalker.
So that was one of those celebrity sightings. You say, okay, I feel good about this now. I can go back in the room and listen to them re-record my stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was one of, yes. And so, on all of this, sometimes I get to fanboy about the people that are on the show, artists, wonderful people that I've been able to work with over the years. And some of these voice people are just like, oh, how did that happen? And that's because the voice directors, Andrea Romano, and who did, a lot of the stuff that I worked on, including Static, oh gosh, I'm going to blank on terrible names now. Shame on me. We'll get back to it. But
Jimmy Kimmel,
really, Ginny McSwain, Sue Blue, people like that. These are all wonderful voice directors, and what they do is they are able to take your script and see the subtext of stuff you didn't even know you'd written, and they bring all of that knowledge of performance and writing to the table or to the recording booth, and they make it possible for these voice actors to just plus the heck out of whatever it is you've written. So again, I've been able to work with, again, a different category of employee, but wonderful colleagues and it's a team effort. I always say, if you want to be in charge of your own stuff from beginning to end, we're in a collaborative medium. If it's got to be your way or the highway, then I suggest sculpture, because you can chip on that piece of stone as much as you like, and that's all you. But everything else is like everybody, all hands on deck.
Or your name better be Prince.
Well, that helps too. Yeah. We're not talking about normal talent. We're talking about up all the way.
Yes.
I'm a different group. None of us is Prince.
No.
Dwayne McDuffie was close. Dwayne McDuffie was a truly, the word genius is bandied about a lot. Dwayne was an actual genius. Like, he went to college when he was 14, then he went back, finished high school, then he went to college, got a couple more degrees, and a prolific reader, spectacularly fast and brilliant writer. So I got a chance to work with people like that. And you say to yourself, well, I'm just going to have to, bring my game up, because they're working at such a high level. And so I learned a lot from people like Alan Burnett and Dwayne, McDuffie and stuff. Again, it's all been, you learn every time you go to bat. And so I'm very lucky. I've been able to go to bat a lot with a lot of these really great people.
Man, that's so cool. I am curious if you even know this answer. I don't know, but who wrote "Let's Get Dangerous"?
My assumption is that was Tad Stones, who created. Well, let's see. It depends on who you talk to. There are several hands on Darkwing Duck. Yeah. Tad was the showrunner on Darkwing, and that was a wonderful show. I got a chance to write just a couple of those. I think Kuntz and Weimer's, David Weimer's and Ken Kuntz were on the development of that, but I'm not entirely sure who did what when.
Okay.
Tad, by the way, since you brought it up after fashion, Tad was the creator and showrunner of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and now there's this hilarious, to my mind anyway, new film on Disney Plus, which is kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge reboot of that series. And for those of us who worked on it, it was like, oh, well, this is a stroll down nostalgia lane, because we're seeing all these characters that we worked with 30 years ago, and they're reappearing. A character that I co-created with another fellow named Ralph Sanchez, Bonkers, has a tiny appearance that's sort of in the left corner of the screen at the very end. So it's like, oh, wow, this is kind of a greatest hits experience for those of us who are on DuckTales, TailSpin, Rescue Rangers, Darkwing.
It's just classic stuff. Like I can't
so
wait. I can't wait for the inevitable reboot. It's a nostalgic reboot. Maybe they just do a standalone movie, but a TailSpin. Like,
yeah,
all of my 30-year-old friends are gonna drop what they're doing and go watch it.
We'll have to have a party.
Yeah,
I even have a TailSpin story that is
please,
because
please.
Your age cohort were the people. A couple of years ago, my agent got a cold call from some fellows in Washington State running a video game company, and they were fans of TailSpin.
Right, which had a video game.
They watched Plunder and Lightning, and they were developing this video game called Rocket Arena. And they said, we want one of the guys who wrote the funny dialogue for Don Carnage. Well, I was one of the guys. There were 4 of us credited as writer, I think, on the TailSpin TV movie. And so for some reason, I got the gig. I didn't create the show. That was TailSpin was created by Jim Magon and Mark Zaslow. And so I got the chance to write my first major video game because those guys were fans of TailSpin. So this is a non-repeating phenomenon that a credit you had close to 30 years ago comes back and says, hello, new employment. So, hooray. And glad to get the gig. And it was a wonderful experience. Again, very different than what we did in television animation. Closer somewhat to my experience of development in feature animation, where you kind of all hands on deck. I did a lot of writing, kind of taking their wonderfully designed characters and creating sort of a world, a more cohesive story, backstory for their world. But, again, I didn't create this property at all. I was brought on and as a hired hand, and it was a wonderful experience. But you can't, thank you for giving me credit. But again, I was just, as often is the case, when you're brought into a show, you're servicing somebody else's vision. And that's what I've made a career doing. I have not created a show of my own and become fabulously wealthy. There are no SpongeBobs on my resume, but I was able, and I never worked for that one either, darn it. But, there are wonderful shows that I've been able to have a hand in, and people remember some of those episodes fondly. Like I say, 16 Static Shocks, 24 Ben-10s. I got a chance to write, multiple episodes of series that people remember well. And so, yay.
Yeah. Well, first off, Rocket Arena is very fun. I got it.
Oh, you've actually played it.
Yeah. I got it. Maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It was on PlayStation Plus. Like, they have a free thing, and I always go download them. I don't always play it. This looked fun. My son and I played it. It's a lot of fun, and the characters
they're funny.
They're funny. The weapons are funny. It's fun. It's engaging. It's 3v3 shooter.
I'd like to start off this portion of our interview by telling Len thank you for Rocket Arena.
You know what? Again, I'm showing my origin. I liked it because it wasn't a blood fest.
Yeah.
Because the designs were like to my mind, DreamWorks quality, and the people doing it were trying something different. So there are clouds of blood and brain matter flying.
Yeah, all the guns,
and that was straight ahead. Yeah, because it's a sort of a concussive kind of thing, but nobody dies.
Yeah, it knocks you off the map instead.
And since most of what my career has been by accident, we can talk about that too. Most of my career has been in the kids entertainment, family entertainment space. So I'm not into the blood and guts so much. I that's the one area I haven't gone into, in too much of my work. I did write an episode of a sort of an anime thing, and that was interesting, stretching those muscles because there was a lot more violence and the suggestion of sexual content. But generally speaking, that's not where I've done the majority of my work.
Would it be fair to say? Would it be fair for someone else to say? Would it be fair for me to say that you are you are a semi-precious jewel in the crown of family animation?
Yeah,
I'm the cubic zirconium of animation writing.
I stole that from our friend Tom Leopold.
From Tom, that's how Tom described himself.
Okay, well, then I would be in very good company knowing his resume.
Yeah.
And the length of his career also. People like that, it's like, well, that worked out, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's so much of what
he's a jerk.
Yeah, so much of what
I don't know.
In the best way.
Yeah, in the best way possible.
Absolute best way.
In the Steve Martin sense of the word.
Yeah.
Of of course, everything just fell into your lap.
That he only needs this thermos.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've covered so much. We've covered so much incredible stuff. In our time together. I love the stories you told about Mark Hamil. Right, like getting to be in that. So, from our writing perspective, right, are you writing for the character at that point when you're doing that episode of Static Shock? Are you writing for the character of the Joker? Are you writing for Mark Hamill, or are you writing for Mark Hamill as the Joker? Because those are all three very distinct things that each of them has a place in the process.
Again,
I think
you're writing for the Joker as portrayed by Mark Hamill. So I'm sure it would be different if you were writing for any of the other iterations of the Joker. But, that since I'm trying to... I didn't get a chance to write for Batman the Animated Series. It wasn't timing. I was on staff at Disney at the time when Alan Burnett was up and running on that. So that was a missed... That would have been great fun because I have a number of friends who wrote on that show and did absolutely brilliant work, and it was a gorgeous series. But you're writing for the character as he has been portrayed elsewhere. So yeah, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Why do that? Because the wheel runs quite well. So you're just trying to add whatever little bits you've got, and give him some jokes and get into that demented headspace, and hope that you're close enough for rock and roll.
That's so cool. I'm also curious. We've had this discussion a lot over the last several days as we've been prepping for this interview. There's a thought, and I'll start off by looking at it in terms of programmers. There's a thought in the world of programming and video game design that the guys that are doing it now are able to be lazier than the guys that did it back in the 70s and the 80s, because now if you want to add something to a game, you just do it. You can create a 3 gigabyte downloadable DLC to a 90 gigabyte game. Like, you don't have to make these kind of cuts. Whereas, let's say on the original NES games, you had to, if you created 10 gigabytes or 10 megabytes worth of stuff, like 2 had to go. You can't fit 10 megabytes onto this cartridge. So your best, 8 megabytes is what got out there. And so as that, we're having that conversation, we're kind of throwing it around. And then we went to go watch, my wife and I went to go watch season 1, episodes 1 through 4 of TailSpin, the ones which you were nominated for. And when we click on season 1 of TailSpin says 63 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what we've been talking about the last couple of days. It's like nowadays,
like it's only one season.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, well, that's too bad.
That's too bad.
There was 100 episodes.
Yeah. So, but nowadays there's this sense that okay, we did 10 episodes. Where's our nomination?
Yeah, 7 seasons.
Yeah,
7 episodes.
Yeah, we did 7 episodes this season, 10 episodes this season. We're ready for our nomination.
Awards.
You guys did 63 episodes in one season of a show. What in the world was that like? Because that seems insane.
Now, yeah, it was continuous employment, so that was all right.
Yeah.
Again, this was the halcyon days of animation, where Disney Afternoon was up and running, and the folks at Warner Brothers were doing brilliant things. But yeah, these 65 episode orders were for a syndication package, a 2-hour block of programming. So that's a lot of airtime to fill 5 days a week. None of this exists anymore, but there's no syndication as it was back then. But that's why you had, for my experience at least, Walt Disney TV Animation had a building with 4 or 5 floors of artists and writers and producers and all sorts of technicians, and they were churning out these giant series orders, stuff being shipped overseas and animated, brought back in post-production, and boom, it's on the air 9 months or a year or whatever later.
And it gets to
None of
Danley's
this
eyes.
exists anymore. I don't think anybody who is making any programming that you're watching on broadcast or cable or streaming, nobody's being lazy. By quite to the contrary, everybody's doing wonderful work. Any show that gets made is a miracle.
Right.
And it may not be your cup of tea. Oh, I didn't like that episode of that series, or that season wasn't as good as the season before. Nobody's trying to just phone it in, because the stakes are too high. And when you're talking about 6, 8, and 10 episode series, thundering amounts of money are being spent on those. I can't imagine what the 9-figure budgets are on some of the Marvel shows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not privy to any of that, but it's a giant amount of money being spent. And so it's a different kind of programming. And I'm hooked on all of these things too. I can't wait for the next season of Name Your Show. But I don't know how to put it, except to say, my God, everybody is trying their level best to turn out something. I can't wait for the next season of Ted Lasso. I can't wait for the next season of Call the Midwife. I can't wait for the next season of somebody feed Phil, because I like to see where he goes and eats.
That.
But
I love it. Someone feed Phil.
You go for different kinds of shows.
Oh, so good. Phil Rosenthal.
Somebody feed Phil. Phil Rosenthal, the creator of of Everybody Loves Raymond, which ran, by the way, for 9 seasons and made him extremely rich. I've met him a couple of times because this is Los Angeles. And,
he's doing good.
It's weird out here, but I don't know the guy. But he is just so genuinely hilarious. You just watch the show, and he travels around the world eating food and meeting people, or meeting people and eating their food. And then that's
the premise. Someone feed me.
It's an eye opener. It is so wonderful. Yeah, but again, that's a documentary series, kind of a funny documentary.
He's figured it out for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just brilliant. Yeah. Just brilliant. But it has nothing to do with cartoons.
In the realm of everyone's trying their best and there's no such thing as lazy writing, what about the writers on Jerry Seinfeld? Can they do better, or are they at their max?
You mean that we're on Seinfeld?
No, Jerry Springer. I said it wrong.
Jerry. Oh, okay.
The writers on Jerry Seinfeld.
I have not. Well, Seinfeld was about nothing, and Springer is about nothing good. So they're not completely unrelated.
Great. Yeah, there you go.
But no, I cannot speak to
he retconned your question.
Yeah, great answer.
I can't speak to the writing reality shows. I was a PA on the pilot for a reality program a long time ago. It was not the high point of my struggling career. Yeah. But for those who do it and do it well, more power to them. It's not my area of expertise.
Oh, yeah. And just a real quick, we started with some thank yous. Just a real quick apology to all the writers at Seinfeld. Larry David, Tom Leopold, Jerry Seinfeld, among others. Fantastic work.
Okay. Careers make no sense. It's dumb luck, timing, who you know, and talent.
Well, Lynn, how do we find this vehicle, this mythical vehicle that is perfect for people who are meh?
I have no idea. If I knew, I would have gotten the car keys and driven off in that vehicle.
I'm looking for this vehicle.
Yeah, he ain't driving it to Dallas to come pick you up, though.
Listen, I'm a native of Los Angeles, so right. I grew up in a company town. As I've said elsewhere, if I grew up in Detroit, I would have gone to work for the Ford Motor Company. But I grew up here in this weird company town, and my childhood, through, again, kind of weird connections, I ended up going to the sets of TV shows when I was growing up. And this will age me straight away in the eyes of you and your listeners. But I went to the set of Batman. I went to the set of Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Awesome.
I met Bruce Lee on the set of The Green Hornet. And because he can kill people with his hands, I'm lucky to be here today. Yeah. Because he could have killed me, but he didn't. He was a very nice man. And the only show I didn't get to was Star Trek. And that is, a sadness for me personally, because I was a huge, huge Star Trek fan, as you can probably guess from the second episode I wrote for Walt Disney TV Animation was a Star Trek spoof, where No Doubt Has Gone Before. So there's kind of a through line there. But anyway, nice. So I got a chance to do some really weird stuff as a kid. I have no explanation, but clearly it had an effect on me. And I said, oh, this could be a career. And then when I was writing plays and musicals and student films, I heard people laughing and applauding. And I said, oh, yeah, this is definitely the career for me, because I had no other skills. So it all, strangely worked out.
I love your story and the way that you tell it, because you sort of have a very humble way of talking about your journey that is almost aw shucks, which is certainly not the case, because there is, I don't know how many thousands of people that are in Los Angeles that grew up in that area that dreamed to, be in your shoes that will never. I mean, we talked to a friend of ours who's a songwriter, and he was at a songwriting clinic, and the guy goes, I mean, there's 2,000 songwriters here at this clinic, and y'all all want to come, and you all write 3 songs a week, but there's 12,000 songwriters here in Nashville that write 5 songs a day. So, your competition's cut out for you, plus all the artists that write songs, and you're in the same boat. Like, you have not just all the other aspiring writers, but so many of the actors are also directors or writers in their own regard.
You've
or
got
have
the
a
Phil
vision
Rosenthals of the world that have been around and are still working.
Yeah,
making TV shows where they get to eat.
There are very few Phil Rosenthals or Chuck Lorre's or any of those guys that have run multiple series, the Norman Lears of the world. Mm-hmm. These people are, unique. They really are extraordinary individuals. And there are a lot of people. I mean, I started out wanting to be a sitcom writer. When I was at UCLA Film School, everybody else was going to write the screenplay that changed the world. I wanted to be a sitcom writer. There's no greater art form by my lights when it's done well. 4 cameras, watching people on a set, and a live audience laughing. That is my ideal, because I grew up in this town, and I had friends whose parents were in the business. And the first show I went to see filmed, I was maybe like 7, I think.
Wow.
I went to see the Dick Van Dyke Show being shot. Okay, so this burrows down in your unconscious. And I as I've said other places, I wanted to be a writer before I knew I wanted to be a writer. It just seemed to make sense. And so, there I was, trying to do that. The first professional script I tried to write, I was in high school, just out of high school. The first assignment I got, I was a junior in college. Then I had a series optioned my senior year of college. So this is going to be easy, right? Well, it wasn't. I had a lot of first breaks. After that, I had 3 years of radio silence. And really, even though I'd had a couple of first breaks, I didn't know what I was doing. So anybody be very afraid of overnight successes, because they don't exist. There are very few who really are. It took me many years of struggling and learning to be a professional writer. Whatever talents or skills I might have had, that had to be honed. And I learned it by doing, the odd assignment, certainly in the first 10 years of my career. And a lot of those years were spent writing industrials and corporate films, the wonder and the glory of Mitsubishi televisions, or, Nissan cars. And so that's where I learned to be a professional and rewrite and meet the client's needs and get paid very little money. So, which continues to be the case today. But, it's what you learn to do. And then by the time I got to Disney TV animation, I was up and running at a professional level. And I got there because I worked for a number of industrial companies, and the mom and pop of one of the industrial companies, the pop was Michael Rye, the voice of Duke Igthorn on the Gummy Bears. And he introduced me to Jim Megan, the story editor on the Gummy Bears. And that's how I was introduced to Disney. And that's where my career took a turn into doing cartoons. Otherwise, I would have continued to be a guy trying to be a sitcom writer. Maybe I would have had some level of success, but I would have aged out a long time ago. But, here I am still banging away, because cartoons, there is more ageism now, because let's face it, you're not funny when your hair goes gray, but you try and you keep at it. And sometimes people are silly enough to keep hiring you. So I'm very lucky that way. Well, but it's not an easy gig. You're right. There are a lot of people trying, and somehow or another, I managed to make a go of it for a while.
I think that's why so many comedians shave their head. Because they know, like, once it goes gray, is the likelihood
Steve Martin is gray.
Yeah, but Steve Martin went gray at like 14.
Again,
which was funny.
Yeah, he was gray when he was working at Disneyland in the magic shop. Yeah. So it's not like.
May I? So many. Steve Martin is so great.
So great. Okay.
Well,
Len, we appreciate the time so much, and we can't thank you enough. But we're going to enter into our final segment of this interview. We end all of our interviews with a segment called Controlled Rowdiness, which is just a series of rapid fire questions which you can answer with as short or as long an answer as you would like. Expect nothing from us by way of reply or response. There are no right answers to these questions, but there are several wrong ones, so make sure you don't step on any of those landmines. And as we get rolling, I'm going to turn it over to Hey Big Dan. What's up?
Okay, the answer is 42.
How many?
That is an answer.
How many?
Go ahead.
I'm trying to think of one. How many times? No, okay. Why is the musical style for RoboCop the musical, which never has been made, but should you write it, why is the musical style that you choose industrial metal?
I would think that would be the ideal choice, because I just don't see them doing Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Yeah, I agree.
Satisfactory.
Yeah.
I also think maybe you could do something with auto-tune.
Hey,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
Hey, think of something funny with 42.
Like T-Pain. T-Pain. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy already did it. There's no
There
reason
you
that I
go.
could think of
There you
anything
go. That's
funnier
exactly
with-
my point.
with
That's
42.
the answer to everything, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's already been done. The Simpsons did it.
Yep. So you worked on a show that we didn't get to called Young Hercules.
Yes.
Yes, and so I am curious, is Ryan Gosling as cute in person as my wife wants him to be?
I'm sure he is. There was a premiere party, and a bunch of the writers finally met them. That was shot in New Zealand
Okay.
by Rob Tappert's company. Tappert and Sam Raimi were the guys behind the Evil Dead movies and all that sort of stuff. And Raimi just directed something recently. You may
The
have
new
seen
Doctor Strange, yeah.
But so that was shot down there, and on a shoestring budget. It was a spin-off for Fox Kids from the Hercules and Xena series. And so we got a chance. My friend Eric Lewald and his wife Julia were the showrunners on Young Hercules, and I got a chance to write a three of those. And he seemed nice. I said hello, and that was about it. But and at the time, he was a skinny little, like barely more than a teenager.
Yeah.
They actually had to paint on the shadows of muscles for him. He's filled out since.
The next time you feel emasculated, just know they were painted on.
Painted on.
No. It all worked out clearly. And I think.
Oh yeah, he's a hunk. He's a total hunk.
Well, he's got a movie. The Russo brothers have just. I just saw a trailer for a movie called The Gray Man, and he's in there fighting against Chris Evans. So he's fighting Captain America. So that you got to work out if you're going to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's a hunk.
There's a plug for the Russos. Checks in the mail, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which Hercules actor, Kevin Sorbo or Ryan Gosling, is most likely to win the Republican nomination and run against Biden?
Oh golly! And next week we'll talk about religion and the environment. The non-controversial stuff.
What else can I add in here
Kevin
at the
Sorbo could run.
Yes.
I don't think Kevin Sorbo has a chance of winning anything. Certainly not a Screen Actors Award.
Right.
end? Yep.
I will just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Which animated show that was on during your time with Disney do you most wish you had an opportunity to write on?
Oh, while I was at Disney?
While you were at Disney. So this could be a Warner Brothers show. It could be another show. It doesn't have to be at Disney.
Definitely. Had I had the opportunity, I was otherwise gainfully employed under contract. I would have loved to have worked on Batman the Animated
That's the
Series.
correct answer for sure.
That's the only one.
That's it.
No, just brilliant. And I had a number of friends who did, and I envy them those credits because people like Bob Goodman and Randy Rogel and Stan Berkowitz working for Alan on that show. My God. I mean, talk about a show that holds up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Paul Dini, of course, just a chance to write extraordinary stories and beautifully produced. Well, anyway, and now I'll start turning as green as my shirt because that was a brilliant show.
Oh no, I'm with you. It's again, that's top 10, probably top 2 cartoons for me growing up.
Yeah, I people for different reasons love X-Men the Animated Series, which I was fortunate to be a small part of, part of my syntax, and Batman the Animated Series. Those were the building blocks for a lot of people's, experience with superheroes. The funny animal stuff that I worked on at Disney, everybody loves that from their childhood. That's why this Chippendales movies is so much fun. But each thing brings a lot of good memories and great experiences.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this because this is my father's favorite show, and it may not be on your radar at all, but my father's favorite show from when I was growing up, there was a claymation show on, I believe it was the early 90s, called Bump in the Night.
Ah, yes. The co-creator of TailSpin, Mark Zaslav, worked on Bump in the Night, and I had nothing to do with it. I can't comment on it except for the fact that a lot of people remember that fondly. So,
yes.
Everybody's got their favorites.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no real question there. It was just
Naturally.
Again.
Your dad's not wrong.
My
by
dad
the way.
Do you
loved it.
also think that show was very cool, Len Uhley?
I'm sure it was very cool.
Great.
Yes, that was my question.
Yeah.
That was pretty much.
So you said that you were a writer because you were born in Los Angeles. You would have been a factory worker if you were born in Detroit, Michigan.
So what do you think about Star Trek: Strange New Worlds?
What would you have been if you were born in Ohio, in, let's say, the Cleveland area?
I probably worked probably making sausage, and in some ways, that's what I'm doing today. Grinding out
Making
sausages.
the sausage. Yeah.
They're just talking sausages, which is sounding a little strange now that I say it. But anyway, I don't know. Cleveland. I would probably, maybe I'd be working at the Rock and Roll Museum. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's the right answer.
Okay.
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, pulled that one out of the hat.
Yeah, well done. Danley would love to eat your sausages if you were...
I am very hungry.
Okay, I'm sorry I brought it up.
All right,
yeah,
no,
we're all going to need a snack.
So you said you loved Star Trek growing up. My last question is, what do you think about the new vehicle that's there? I think there's 2 or 3 episodes when this airs. It'll be 3 or 4. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds.
Have
you not seen it?
not seen all of them. The stuff I have seen, I'm back in my teenage years.
Me too. I love it.
have written to the showrunner, one of the showrunners in that, and said thank you. I have goosebumps watching that.
Oh,
it is
yeah.
just,
It's so
to
good.
my mind, it is so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I mean, talk about, is there a show you'd like to write on? That's a show I'd like to write
too.
on.
Me
Sorry
too.
to put that out there. It's groveling, but with a cause. I think it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
I like the characters.
The casting's great.
Talk about being jealous. That would be a cool thing to work on. That Orville would be a cool thing to work
would be
on.
fun,
I know
yeah.
a couple of the guys who worked on that. Not well enough to ask them for work, but
Yeah. Hey,
you know,
Seth.
this is like, that's what I want to be. I mean, the first thing I wrote is in a box somewhere. In 6th grade, I wrote a Star Trek script. I played Spock because you can't see because my hair is too long, pandemic haircut. I have pointy ears, and so naturally I played Spock. This was my childhood. Like, people are saying, "Oh, that cartoon you wrote." Well, that was my cartoon I wrote, but it was people doing stuff like Star Trek or Get Smart, and that's another digression. The guys that were running the show that got me my first professional writing assignment were the people who had done Get Smart. So it was like comedy gods I was working for. Talk about intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
That was that.
Well, that's fantastic. This has been a blast.
Yeah.
I've loved nerding out and nostalgically just retreading all of my
I
childhood.
just loved listening to stories.
Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. Len, thanks so much for being on the show. Tell our audience where it is that they can find you and follow some of the work that you're doing right now.
Well, I am currently, if you're silly enough to go on Twitter, I am at Len Uhley. That was original. What I've got, I recently, I wrote a couple of episodes of that show I mentioned, Stillwater. That's out there. I wrote one episode recently of Octonauts Above and Beyond, which is a charming preschool show with a real cool sort of 60s vibe. Lovely show. I wrote an episode, I think they're going to start dropping tomorrow, of 3-minute episodes for Hello Kitty. I kid you not. A couple of the Veggie Tales I wrote like a couple of years ago, those are out on some platform or another. I couldn't tell you where that is. And right now because why not? I'm writing screenplays for the first time in years. I have a comedy drama, which again, for your audience has, it's a family comedy drama with just a touch of faith, because that seems to be a runner in the work I do when I have a chance. And I'm trying to sell that, and that's easy. Mm-hmm. And I've just finished a very rough first draft on a screwball comedy. To make it that much harder to sell, I did a screwball comedy. So, this is, like I say, if it were easy, more people would be doing it. And I rise to the challenge, I hope. But so basically, I'm just trying to, continue to write stuff and, hope that there's more animation work to be done, and whatever else happens, that would be nice too. I have a wonderful sitcom pilot and series Bible, because Write What You Know, it's set in a struggling animation studio. I just need to have somebody say, that would be fun. Let's do that.
Yeah.
I only need to be half as successful as Big Bang Theory. I'd be fine with 5 seasons.
Well,
good luck with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, to check out Len's stuff, we recommend you go on IMDb, check out his list as the semi-precious jewel in the crown of animation and family entertainment. We also recommend that you go buy yourself a stack of printer paper and some ink, print it out, and pick one.
Yeah, there you go. Links to all of Len's stuff is going to be in the show notes, including Stillwater, the Nightcrawler episode, his Twitter feed. And so if you are a fan of his work, make sure that you check that out. Also, if you are a person that just feels like, you know what, I want to throw some money behind a new publication, we can, if you email us at the Reverend and the Reprobate at gmail.com, we'll put you in touch with Len so you can buy his sitcom. There you go.
Yeah.
Boy, we got a sitcom for you.
Yeah, yeah, anybody that happens to have, a deal with Warner Brothers, give me a call.
Yeah, you got it.
If you got a deal and you don't know what to do with it,
yeah, whose deal is this? I'll just give it to Len.
We've got a slot. We can do this.
What about
that happens a lot. Sure it does.
Oh man. Well, Len, you've been great.
Thanks so much
man.
for being on the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening to me rattle on. I do appreciate it. I really appreciate the invitation. And good luck with continuing with your show, which apparently has a giant following. Who knew?
Yeah.
So, well done.
Thanks. Len freaking Uhley. Unbelievable. Like that guy, so he was so affable about you said I authored your childhood, but so many other people did. No,
I didn't work.
No,
I
they
didn't
didn't
do that. I just worked on every TV show that you watched.
that you enjoyed. DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, TailSpin, X-Men, Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. Like, there's everything.
Static Shock, which I think we were the same age. We were older when it came out.
We were older when Static Shock came out.
Was like 14, 15 maybe?
He worked on...
It was still cool.
The Batman.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Which is pretty impressive. The Batman, the animated show called The Batman. Yeah, is awesome. But he's also done Avengers and Iron Man and VeggieTales, and a lot of the VeggieTales stuff that he did was so I think if I remember correctly, he's worked in all 3 phases of the VeggieTales stuff.
Sports.
Like he worked,
offense,
defense, special teams. Yeah, no, he did the stuff that was direct to VHS whenever they were still Big Idea. He did some of the things whenever they were bought with DreamWorks, and some of the stuff now that's been going on. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I loved hearing about...
It was great just to listen to his stories.
We're all... Yeah. Again, I said at the beginning, I was like, I don't know where to start. I typically go, like, I want to talk about these. There was way too much to talk about.
No, Len, tell me a cool story.
Yeah,
this essentially is like what we did with Tom.
Yeah. And then he brings up Rob Paulson. I go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can we let me tell you a story about him? Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know all about all of that.
And then the Mark Hamil story.
We just need to hang out, Len.
The Mark Hamil story was so great that he's just, you see him too? Just absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
make sure that you check out the stuff in the show notes. You can look on Len's IMDb page to find out some of the stuff that's there.
He's
so
cool.
Not including the Emmy that he didn't win, even though they were the only one nominated in the category. Such a bust.
Yeah, but he's right. He did win a Lifetime Achievement.
He did, which is cool, even though it looks like a can opener, as you said. So check out Len's stuff. It's in the show notes. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all have a good give. We'll see y'all next week.
Hi, my name is Len Uhley, and what are you doing watching The Reverend and the Reprobate? Go away!